Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about this year's Christmas special of Doctor Who. Fantastic Christmas special. Obviously, this is Capaldi's exit as the 12th Doctor. And I think overall, it wasn't to me, it wasn't like some explosive, huge battle. It was a very, it's a big story, but at the same time being a very small story, because it's a big story in the sense of the fact of the matter is the Doctor kind of screwed up time, not wanting to shift, not wanting to regenerate. I don't know why I used the term shift, but it's also a small story because it's all about him kind of accepting it. It's a big focus of it. And the fact of the matter is, Doctor's always changing, always hits you hard. I mean, obviously, that's the Doctor always regenerating is always such a fascinating thing for many different reasons. For one, it's because it's what it really means. What it means that a person you see right now, this version of the Doctor, dies and never comes back. Yes, there's extenuating circumstances where you kind of get to see that Doctor, but it's the Doctor's always a new person. So it's he is legitimately dying every time and just becoming a new person with their own new quirks and their own new personality. A lot of their core, who they are in the center is the same, but at the same time, they are very different. So, and I that's what this episode was about. It's just because and it's a very human thing too, because the Doctor's I don't want to die. It's I've done it so many times. Can't I just rest? At the time, did not realize who, originally in the season 10, or rather series 10 finale, I didn't recognize who that other person was. I also figured it was another Doctor, but I didn't recognize who it was. It is the actor who played the first Doctor, which is crazy because I think in a beautiful way, it's it's going from beginning to end, and I guess it makes, storyline purpose wise, it makes the most sense because it's this is who the Doctor originally was, at least within the confines of the show. But I think still with even in that, because that's who the Doctor originally was before he changed his face for the first time, became a new person, regenerated for the first time. So it's who you originally were, from who do you become, and then just kind of both of you struggling with the same thing. Because obviously 12 doesn't remember ever experiencing that as one. But I love that being the main focus of the story, and just little quirks and jokes between them. It's especially when the captain walked up to him, it's either one of you a Doctor, and Capaldi looks at one and it's just are you trying to be funny? And just their interactions, because it's what, you're not me. The fact is, one couldn't even conceive it. I guess it's because for him, it's he's in the process of literally about to try and fight his regeneration. So it's no, I'm gonna fight it off. I'm not going to. Is that even possible anyway? People fought it off momentarily, sure, but how? What I'd love to get a time frame on that. What is the most that you'd be able to fight off your regeneration before you finally crack? Because no matter what the circumstances is, I think you would eventually do it anyway, because you're in that state because you were mortally wounded. So it's kind of eventually you're just, I guess, ticking on fumes. So it's at one point he would have just given up, his body just would have given up. But I guess it's also his sheer will that was keeping him from regenerating. And I guess if you will it enough, I guess you could just stop yourself from regenerating at all and just die. I guess kind of that's what he was kind of aiming for. So, but I love the concept of this group known as the Testimony. Basically, them coming to you the moment before you die. They kind of pull you out of time a little bit from the moment you die. They copy all your memories and stuff like that, put you back in time. You don't even realize what happened. And basically, they keep a copy of you because it's supposed to be for Earth 2. Was it? Or was it second Earth? What was it? It's a different Earth, in the year 5,000,000,012 or something crazy like that. And basically, there's beautiful's to it, because it's this way you keep a person alive. Even after they're gone, that person can still be here with us. I'm sure it helps with the grieving process, because it's that person's still here with you. Obviously, we saw that with Bill, because I kept wondering, I was is this the real Bill? I was, because a lot of things kind of wandered through my mind. First, I'm is this supposed to be Bill, before she died? But then it's she did. Well, because I guess this is supposed to be her, after what that was supposed to represent her after whatever situation she went on with Heather. I don't know, because she did ask, oh, well, how did you even get here? Well, it's like, well, obviously, like the testimony, the glass bodies, which I like that idea too, because it's almost like pouring sand into an hourglass. Like every grain of sand is like a memory filling up that glass person, and just like that. I mean, they didn't point it out like that, but still, like the thought of like this is a glass person, and you're slowly filling them up with all your memories and stuff like that. Because I really like the doctor's point of being like, the fact of the matter is, being as old as I am, after everything I've ever experienced, like I would shatter these glass copies because I've just experienced too much of my life. But that whole Bill thing caught me. I was like, oh my God, because like that left my brain wondering. It's like, oh, so does that mean Will? Because that's always been a thought in my head. I was like, well, will Bill come back? And because the last time we saw Bill, she was, like I said, going off with Heather, and she was part of that whole pool thing. So I was like, oh, let's experience the universe. So the thing I was wondering is like, well, is that supposed to mean that, obviously, like while they were out doing the adventure, at some point, because I mean, that's just how things work. No matter how old, no matter how long something's around, everything ends at some point in time. The universes, whatever the case may be, everything ends at some point. And for the doctor, he wanted this to just be his end. Because, you've changed faces, you changed people over and over again. And it's like, you get tired of it. You're just like, can't I just be me and just rest? Because it's like, even when he transitions over to the next person, when he becomes the next doctor, it's like, it's not like he's resting, but this face and who he was then dies. And it's like that, it's sad to think about that. Like, it's actually uber depressing when you actually like really break down the whole situation with Time Lords, in a sense of like, you're dying every time, leaving that person behind. This was a person who lived, and it's just like they're going like that, It's like, even as long as Time Lords live, they still have, in certain regards, they are very similar humans in that sense. So, and I love that being the overarching theme of the entire episode, because it's not just 1 and 12. Even the captain is feeling it. At first, he's like, in that crater, I felt like I was okay with it. I accepted it. But now that I've been taken out of it, like, I'm a little scared to go back, because now there's a part of me that it's like, that's the thing about hope. Hope kind of opens you up to fear. Because you start hoping a little bit. It's like, oh, the fact is I live, so maybe I don't have to die now. And the fact is he got that little bit of hope in him. And it's like, oh crap, now I just so time will get fixed. Which I did appreciate that design of doing like the snow pausing as well as the battlefield. But nevertheless, it's like, once again, like we only saw 2 places that were really affected by it. So that's why I'm saying like it's really all of time froze, but it's still a situation of like, it's still kind of a small. Well, except for that planet with the Daleks, with Rusty, it wasn't paused. But I guess it was like, maybe maybe time hadn't quite reached it yet. Like because the doctor kind of explained it's kind of a bit of a whirlpool, so maybe it hadn't quite reached that far out yet. So, but it's just, it's just, like I said, it's a very human episode of just like struggling with your end. Because the fact of the matter is, every doctor like has that moment, that send off that just kind of, no matter what, it still kind of hits you pretty hard. Like, it's still, part of me is just like, no, I'm good. I mean, it's just, it still hits you because it's the end, but the realization does not hit you until the final scene where it's like they're saying their final lines, and it's like, no, it's too real. And it's just like, Capaldi has done an amazing job these past, 3 seasons, because he showed up in 8. Yeah, like he's done a fantastic job. Got like so much I didn't talk about that I wanted to talk about between him and 1. Their comparisons of like TARDISes. It's like, what did you do to this place? It's hideous. And then talking about the fact is that the place isn't clean. And I love that basically every time the doc, 12 has to basically tell 1, you don't talk about ladies in that sense of like, oh, too bad so-and-so is not around to kind of clean up. It's like, no, you can't talk like that. And part of me wonders, is that supposed to be kind of like a little wink and a nod to the fact is of Jodie Whittaker, like the whole not huge backlash, but like the minority of people who are just kind of like, I'm not really sure I'm okay with the doctor being a woman. I don't know whether that's supposed to be a knock against that, but I guess it's also supposed to be I guess it's a different time period. I guess that's what that's kind of representing. But I just love the conversations, especially when it's just like when he was talking, it's like, oh yeah, like when he was talking to Bill, and he's like, "Oh my God, Leah, obviously, 12 missed you a lot. I mean, look at the ship; it's like dirty." And then you have the doctor be like, shut up, shut up. Oh, look at this; it's sparkling. Don't you want to look at that? It's just like he's making these little like sexist comments, and then you just have like you have 12 just kind of losing his mind, just being like, "Please shut up! Please don't say stuff like that anymore." And I'm like, I love it. It's so messed up because the funny thing is to me, like, at least from my limited experience with Doctor Who, he never really too much has to deal, like, it doesn't always work, especially in this regard, this far back. Like I said, this is his original face versus who he is now. So that says a lot because, like, obviously he's crossed paths with his past selves before, but it's never been that big of a difference. That's a crap ton of time. I think they were basically saying that was like a span of 1,500 years. I don't know. Like, I know the Doctor's like in his 2000s now, but I don't know like exactly, what the time frame is. I'm sure like there's someone out there who's like educated with the timeline of like, well, actually, like, is this much time in between? I mean, you can make the argument. Like I said, I could have sworn he was saying that it was like 1,500 years or something like that, but I could have sworn he was much, much younger in comparison in like earlier versions. Nevertheless, that's why get nitpicky about it. It's not important, but nevertheless, like, that's a good chunk of time. So one with the monocle, and you have 12 with the shades, and it's just, like, one's like, why are you wearing those shades? Why are you wearing sunglasses inside? It's just like, oh, you would have been able to notice that this isn't necessarily just an artificial woman if you just took off the sunglasses. And it's like, who the hell do you think you are? I'm the Doctor. And it's just like, and also that's got to be interesting too, seeing like that's got to be messed up in a sense too, like seeing your entire future from 2 to now to 12, all in front of you, what your future holds for you. And it's like, and then even 12's like, no. Well, they didn't even include all the comedy bits. I was like, that's super good. Also being known as the Doctor of War. God, that kind of coincides with what I was bringing up earlier. He never goes back too far. Like, obviously the 50th year anniversary kind of tackled with that, but it's never a situation where he interacts with himself too far back, at least in this regard. So it's only, to my knowledge, although in this instance, there's only like, in that 50th year anniversary, there's kind of the two instances of like, oh yeah, like this is your past self meeting your future self, but like I said, it's just because they're so different, especially their approaches and just everything. It's like, oh, why did your TARDIS look like this? And there was even a moment, I forgot what it was that Bill had pointed out. It's like, wait, isn't this on the wrong side? He's like, no, just go inside. And then the Doctor comes back out, looks at the door, he's like, huh. And it's so interesting. And this is coming from someone who has no experience with the original Doctor Who series, but it's still fun just to kind of see the differences that you can see them referencing to this and that, especially the whole Dalek situation. I was like, I felt like those were supposed to be Daleks. I guess it's been a while, so I forgot what they look like on the inside of those things. I was like, those things squirming around. It's like, oh, you should know them. He's like, oh, they look familiar. I was like, it had to be something that's been around for a while. And I'm like, Daleks are kind of like, the Doctor's number one enemies. Like, a lot of planet names and places kind of slipped my mind, but I was like, because I forgot what they actually look like doing it, like underneath all those, like that mechanical killing machine, so. But even above all that too, this episode also brought up an interesting question of like, what makes a person, in a sense of like, this Bill wasn't a real Bill, because the entire episode is making you feel like, oh man, is this really Bill? Is it not? And she eventually gets super upset because it's like, he still won't accept that she's Bill. But then one came out and it's like, oh, because she's out there calling him an ass, and then one steps out and it's like, hey, if you don't calm down with that language, I'm gonna spank you. And you have 12 being like, okay, can we pretend that didn't happen? Well, I mean, it just happened. It's like, let's never talk about it again. We're going to talk about it. We're probably going to look back and laugh on it for many, many years. And I'm like, I was like, oh, that's so good. It's so interesting because it's like, you're embarrassed. It's like, don't look at older me. And that was even a joke too. He's just like, at some point I get younger, right? He's like, what? 12's like, what are you talking about? I'm younger than you. And it's so good. Which I guess that's also a reference to the fact is almost like the Kurt, like that was the whole thing when it went from Smith to Capaldi, was like a lot of people's hearts got broken. It's like, what happened to my young, sexy Doctor? It's like, well, the fact is the Doctor can be different people. He's been, different ages at different points in time. So And I guess that was supposed to be kind of a wink and a nod to that because it's like more often than not, he, especially with the reboot, he tended to be more on the younger side. Obviously, Eccleston, then Tennant, then Smith, and then Capaldi kind of changed that up, being an older Doctor. So, but getting back to what I was bringing up, I'm all over the place. No surprise there. But the whole aspect of like that not being really Bill, but it's like, well, I'm made up of all of her memories. Isn't that good enough? That means that I am Bill. Like, you know, and it's such a like tightrope situation because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, because that's kind of saying all we are our memories, but I think we're more than that. I think there is a little something to it. But I mean, she acts like Bill, she talks like Bill, she says things that only Bill would say. So it's like essentially it is Bill, but I don't know. There's an argument to be made with that whole situation. I mean, especially for the Doctor, like, because I remember him getting super pissed at first. He was like, no, you don't impersonate Bill. The fact is, what she did, she sacrificed her life for strangers. You do not disrespect my friend by pretending to be her. I was like, that's super beautiful that he said that. Not the first time he's ever had a companion be, you know, replaced, because there was that whole storyline with Amy. Wasn't it back at, yes, season 6, where that, like, fake... Wasn't that season 6? Yeah, that whole fake version. That I forgot what those things were called, but well, when Amy was kidnapped, there was that fake in her place the entire time. So he kind of sees that. So I was kind of hoping that basically this would end with like Nardole and this. Well, obviously it wasn't really Nardole, but I thought it'd be him and this Bill like going on adventures with like the new Doctor. I thought that's what it might be setting up. Which, because the Doctor's never around. Well, no, I'm about to tell a lie there. I mean, in retrospect, that's like the only time he's ever changed around a companion has been. I mean, at least with my knowledge within this show, I don't know about the original, but within this, it's Eccleston and Capaldi. Well, Eccleston to Tennant, you know, Rose was there, and then from Smith to Capaldi, Clara was there. So, and I also appreciate that too, that even at the end they were able to give 12 Clara back. And it's like, because remember like how everything ended for him with her in season/series 9. So that is kind of nice that he kind of has that final gift. And the fact of the matter is, I think it's still, I mean, that's still something that can apply later on, because it's like, well, 13 can remember Clara too. It's like, oh yeah, I had a good friend Clara, like not going the rest of her, you know, her story, not remembering who Clara is. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch of being able to remember a good friend that, you know, that you just couldn't quite remember. So that was a nice touch. I even liked her being like, yeah, it's actually kind of messed up that you forgot me. So, and also like the fact is that Nardole shows up and he's like, oh yeah, you were wondering about me, huh? He's like, I'm already dying, and he just had to make it worse by making you pop up, and it's just like, I love it, just insult to injury. So I did like, and it kind of coincides with the War Doctor in a sense of like, oh, this is what it means to be the Doctor of War, which I also appreciate all the different names that they've called him. Not familiar with a lot of those. That was kind of interesting, but nevertheless, basically how he handled that situation with the captain, returning him to that particular moment he's supposed to die. But it's like, basically because he shifted things a little bit, enough that it wouldn't affect things too much. It's like giving them this one day where both sides come together to throw down their arms. It can't happen at any other point in time. It can only happen in this one point in time, because it's close enough to Christmas that he could slide things in that direction. And that was kind of able to mediate some kind of like temporary, like, you know, armistice, and you know, with Christmas, and kind of bonding over that, and just kind of like, no, let's put on, like, you know, because showing like, oh, no matter that we're on different sides, that this one moment can bring us together. It won't last forever, but in this moment, you know, this is the only place that it can be done. And it's very similar to how the whole like Time War situation kind of played out, as we know, with the 50th anniversary, like with the War Doctor. So granted, like obviously he couldn't return to his time knowing what happened. So, and especially for the number one, it has to be a little disheartening, because you're heard being called the War Doctor, and it's like the Doctor of War, and it's like obviously that doesn't sit well with you. You're just like, oh wow, that doesn't, oh wow, am I some kind of monster or something later on? It's just like, no, like this isn't how I handle things. Also, it's kind of interesting too, because I had no idea that wasn't a thing, that the first Doctor doesn't have a sonic screwdriver. He's like, what is that? Sonic is like, wait, what? Sonic screw? It's a what? An audio screwdriver? Like, right? Wow, that's so interesting. Just as someone like, and once again, as someone who's never seen the original, I'm sure like there is a lot more to unpackage with everything in this episode. If you've seen all of Doctor Who all across the board, once again, I'm only familiar with the rebooted, like, but still, I think you could pull stuff from that and be like, oh, really? That's fascinating. Which does make me wonder, like, which version of the Doctor was the first Doctor to start implementing the sonic screwdriver? Was it 2 going forward? Was it a little bit later on in his timeline? I mean, we just kind of have to wait and see on that. Well, I mean, see in a sense of like, I'd have to do my own research on that. So, but it's also interesting too, because even it's something that the Doctor brought up in this episode, like the whole testimony situation. It's like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's kind of reassurance, like, with, kind of helping people kind of grieve a little with death. They kind of, even if that person's gone, they can still kind of live on in some shape or form amongst us, that they never truly die, because all they are, their memories and everything are collective. But once again, that turns into that situation, as I said, that tightrope of like, well, is that all people really are memories? You can make that argument, but at the same time, I think there's a little bit more to it, I think there are, I mean, like I said, I don't know, because Bill was still kind of Bill even without it being Bill, so. I also didn't even talk about it too, like I did like how they implemented that at the beginning, like previously on Doctor Who, 709 episodes ago, I was like, that's really good, and actually splicing in the actual footage from the show like that, I was like, that's actually pretty neat. And then doing the same thing at the end of the episode as well. So, and there was also another interesting question too that, like, Bill kind of brought up, and it was like, why did you take the TARDIS and run? And it's like, well, it's not like I'm not asking the question of what were you running from. It's more like, what were you running to? And I was like, oh, that's such an interesting thing. It's like, Bill's kind of the one that asks questions. It's actually kind of interesting too, because it's like the Doctor was like, oh yeah, the other me must have told you about, all of that. And it's like, no, like obviously the Doctor all across the board never tells every companion everything. Legitimately, canonically speaking, I could be wrong, but it seems like canonically speaking, the only one who knows everything about the Doctor is Clara. Just because, like, her being the girl, what was her thing? In season 7? Because she basically existed throughout every aspect of the Doctor's life, it's kind of like was her thing. What was it, like his timeless girl or something like that? I don't remember. It kind of upsets me that I'm not remembering that correctly. You get what I mean, though. I forgot what her actual, like, what it was actually called. Like, what her kind of title was given to her because of that whole situation of existing throughout every aspect and every phase of the Doctor's life and every different regeneration and stuff, being there to witness and know everything there is to know about him, essentially. But it turns out, like, the Doctor's biggest question of, like, well, what is that? Like, evil should basically, and it was kind of an interesting thing about it, basically, evil should always win. It's like, love, like, good is powerful because of, like, self-sacrifice and love, but trying to understand what acts as that balance, what makes it so that the good does win, that there is a balance to this whole good and evil thing. And then Bill's like, you really don't get that? And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, what if it was one bloke? And he's like, what do you mean one bloke? It's like, what if it was just one dude who actually kept the balance? And it's like, well, who would that person be? And it's like, you don't get that, do you? You really don't know. And it's like, well, does the other me know? And she's like, actually, I don't think you do. Because the Doctor doesn't recognize, like, to him, it's like, he helps out people, but he doesn't recognize what role he plays in the grand scheme of things. You keep the balance. Like, you're just like, oh, Earth is under my protection. But even then, I don't think he ever truly understands what that means, what he represents, that this one man on his own with his little box traveling through time, that he's able to keep that balance. And I think it adds a different layer to, like, the Doctor, in a sense of, like, he is a hero, but he's never thought of himself as one. And that's always clearly, like, been there. That's always been clear. He's always wanted to help people, but... And it's just kind of interesting. It's so interesting getting a different character's perspective, being like, how do you, even after all this time, you actually don't realize how important you are, like, that, what you do, like, really matters in the grand scheme of things, you know? So it's very fascinating that in that entire conversation like that. So, but sadly, obviously, like I said, this was Capaldi's send off, and we did get a little peek at our introduction to Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. Not much. I'm going to let you know ahead of time. I try to look it up afterwards. Not from the limited about amount of information that's out there. A lot of the stuff that I'm currently seeing is saying that basically season 11 or series 11 will not be airing until late 2018. I saw some articles saying at the very least fall, which I think there was like a big chunk of time between 9 and 10. To be fair, I kind of had to go back and rewatch like 9 before 10 came out because like I just fell behind, so I don't actually remember the exact time, but if I remember correctly, there was a good chunk of time in between those series. So it might be an entire year, might be a good many months before we see the next Doctor, the next season. So I'm very interested. Obviously, a lot of people have their reservations about this situation for their own particular reason. It's like, hey, you have your opinion. I don't agree with the whole like reservations. I kind of don't get that. I'm always excited to find out about the new Doctor, no matter what the situation may be. Especially in this case, because it's like, oh, what's this new Doctor going to be like? Who are they going to be like personality-wise? Like, obviously, like a lot of the first look stuff shows that, like, 13 has a little hood, which I'm like, oh, I'm very eager to find out like the rest of her attire. Like, oh, does she like bow ties? Does she hate bow ties? Because even one Doctor was like, oh, don't eat pears or something like that. Which, is that a thing across all Doctors? Do they all hate pears? I mean, will she be the one that breaks the trend and just be like, no, I'm gonna eat pears. I love pears. It's just to kind of spite, like, from a funny perspective of being like, oh, I'm going to do it just to spite my other versions or something like that. Was it only 12 that didn't like pears, or have other previous Doctors not liked them either and stuff like that? And it's like, basically don't give in to hate, to kind of always feed love, so kind of giving, like, obviously it's almost, obviously you see the meta aspect of it, like Capaldi kind of passing on these messages to the next Doctor, well, him passing it on to Jodie Whittaker, as well as the Doctor passing it on to the next Doctor. And he basically was like, one more lifetime isn't going to kill anyone except me. So like I said, I think overall, like I said, I think it was beautifully done in the sense of like, this whole story is just you dealing with your own situation. It's not an easy thing to deal with. So, but I think they handled it in a very beautiful way. We are going to miss you as a Dr. Capaldi. It's actually funny because this is my first time live dealing with this, because every other obviously this is me doing it recording wise. I think the only other one I saw live was Matt Smith to Capaldi, actually. Like, this is my second time seeing like the transition live in a sense. Obviously, this is the first time you've ever getting my thoughts about the regeneration. It's just kind of weird because it's like I said, because like so much of the series I binged on, like, it was back in roughly 2000, was it 11? So it was like roughly around the time Series 6 had ended. Nevertheless, I think I've definitely talked about that before, but so I won't kind of go too much into that. So, but obviously at that point, kind of saw some stuff like week to week, and other things, just like certain seasons, I just ended up binging on entirely later on after the fact, like 9, for example. So, nevertheless, like I said, I'm very excited. Hopefully, we get some news soon about what's going to go down. I am curious, like, will anything happen from this whole Bill situation? I doubt it, considering the fact is, well, that wasn't really Bill, and I don't know if the testimonies could really do that, like go out on adventures like that. So I don't know. Not unless he crosses paths with, if the Doctor crosses paths with Bill at some point in the future or something like that. I don't know. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. Especially how it ends with literally the Doctor falling out of the TARDIS, which surprisingly enough isn't the first time. I mean, not to this scale, though, because it's like you're literally falling and it looks like the TARDIS is literally exploding, but that's just so the TARDIS could go away and then come back. I'm also very interested to see what the TARDIS looks like. Obviously, with every new Doctor, the TARDIS takes on a new form, kind of reflecting that. So, what adventures we'll get in? Well, we will just have to wait and see. As I've said over and over again, I do apologize. And this one, I just had kind of let my mind run a little too wild with with a lot of these recordings sometimes, and I just kind of lose track and just go on a huge tangent. So I do apologize. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good